I'm
Okay,
playing.
so for the recording, for the recording, we're doing Sage Mode, Kabuto, no terrain advantage versus Edo Itachi. The judge is Geto Jin. I'm debating Reggie. I have Edo Itachi. So what was the scaling?
Yeah, you agree they're relative in stats? Like they can react
No.
to each other, dodge each other? Okay. Do you want me to show them? Okay. You agree in the fight that they're like reacting to
Wait,
each
no, no,
other?
no. I can grant that there's circumstances in which provides reaction ability.
Did I cut out or did he just die?
I died.
He,
But I
he
said I
said,
can grant that there's I'm just saying I can grant that there's circumstances in which would instantiate inability to react.
okay, so what do you mean by that? Do you mean like
It means
Itachi or
that
my
it
bad?
isn't just
The
his pure. Oh
terrain?
my bad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you think that the terrain provides like Kabuto a unique ability to react to his attacks better?
The terrain would be one example, yeah. Because if he has control of the terrain, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to sense the footsteps of Itachi, for example, via the terrain, or in other words, the location of Itachi via his control of the terrain. So, although he may not be of the same speed as Sasuke, for example, in that terrain specifically, due to his manipulation and control of the terrain, he may be able to sense the location of Itachi at all times, which can cause, obviously, due to his analytical mind, cause him to have predictability.
Yeah, okay. I disagree that the terrain's what provided him that because we know that he's able to what's the word? He has Sage mode, which just
Mhm.
allows him to passively sense things.
Uh, Wait, show the passive sensing. I believe that the
Sure,
sensing would just be correlated to the terrain sensory shit.
I got you.
And then additionally, let me clarify: just because he has Sage mode, which potentially can provide another type of sensory data, does not mean that he doesn't also have the extensive type, which applies to the terrain. Meaning that, for example, if he has full control of the terrain, he can sense the location of Itachi because he's stepping on the terrain or something like that.
But
And
hold
then
on,
another clarification of Getojin: the terrain is only one example, which will be a circumstance that allows him reaction ability or reactive ability.
I sent the scan.
Nature's my ally, as I said before. Nature, so he does. Blah blah blah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. What do you? How do you think he's sensing?
By using the nature energy. Like how the same way Sage Naruto is able to sense, the same way
Yeah.
I guess Sage Naruto's only
And
good
then
at like
where's the evidence here?
he says he
Well, no,
does
no, 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 no,
Susanoo.
no, no. That's not the point. I'm saying, what's the evidence as to why this disproves the fact that he can also be using the terrain location shit? Because obviously, the
Oh yeah,
Sage
yeah, yeah.
Mode sensory is going to have a limit to the range. Well, for example, if it is the case that he has full control of the terrain in which Sasuke and Edo Itachi are fighting in, he can sense the location of Itachi and Sasuke at all times, which he seems to know the location of Sasuke and Itachi at all times. So him having two types of sensory abilities doesn't defeat the fact that one of them exists.
Okay, can you show that it's two different types of sensory abilities and not just the Sage mode sensory?
Yeah, that just one burden shifts. That's the claim you're presupposing. But let me clarify something real quick. The
No, no, no,
response
no.
you gave, hold on, let me finish. Hold on, hold on. The response you gave, obviously I'm going under the hypothetical, but the response you gave against why he wouldn't just have sensory because of the control over the terrain was the fact that he already has sensory. I'm saying him having an additional form of sensory doesn't contradict him possibly having another type of sensory. The same mass, for example, you can sense chakra, but that's one type of sensory. But alongside that, you can sense natural energy, which is a sensory granted from Sage Mode.
Okay, I disagree with the fact that here, hold on, that he even has this nature sense. How do I word it? He has the ability to just sense based off of the terrain,
Why not
external
though?
to Sage. What do you mean
When you
why
say
not?
external to Sage Mode, I
It's just
believe that
not.
he's hold on, hold on, let me clarify. I believe he's controlling the terrain via his Sage Mode status. So I'm not saying external to Sage Mode, meaning outside of Stage Mode or Sage Mode, he's able to sense the location, everything within his terrain. I'm saying that I don't see why Sage Mode, if it gives him control over his terrain, wouldn't also allow him to get sensory abilities off of the terrain in which he's controlling. I'm not saying he can do this thing independent of Sage Mode. I'm just saying one type of sensory that comes from Sage Mode does not mean that's the only type of sensory that comes from Sage Mode, specifically when it comes to the application of the terrain control.
Okay, so I'm just gonna play this out. Are you saying that both of them are Sage mode sensory, but one of them allows him to manipulate the terrain, and that's what's giving him 2 layers of sensory ability.
Yes, I'm saying combatively speaking, the natural sage mode sensory can be something which is stronger. However, when it comes to the circumstance in which we're talking about, a better application, if it were to exist, would be just sensing the location of where Itachi is based upon his footsteps on the terrain in which he controls. So I'm saying it's guaranteed that his Sage Mode is the ability in which grants him the control over the terrain. So I don't see why, off of that control of the terrain, which is extensive control, by the way, he wouldn't be able to sense the location of objects in which reigns within his terrain at all times, extending past his nature in or his nature sensory abilities.
Okay, why would this just not apply in other battles? I'm confused. If he just has this ability
Oh
to
my
move
god! Because
objects,
huh?
if he has the ability to just like move objects based off of his Sage Mode, he
Because
has
wait,
the
hold on.
ability.
Because Sage Mode Kabuto was already in the cave, so we don't know if he applied his chakra completely to the enclosed cave rather than in a empty void. It may take longer for him to apply his chakra to a specific point, or it may take even just any amount of time to apply his chakra to a part of the thing. Because obviously he has to consume the cave with his chakra to obviously control it. It's not like he can control it independent of chakra. He's obviously using chakra to control it, whether it's natural chakra or whatever, the natural energy, or whether or not it's actual just chakra.
Are you saying he
We
like?
know that Sage Mode Kabuto was in the cave before Itachi showed up, so his chakra will already be extended to the cave. While within the empty void, in some, he wouldn't have that amount of time, that amount of prep time, which he already knew Edo Itachi was showing up. By the way, we both grant that, right?
What, that he was in the cave? Yeah, I agree he was in the cave. I don't think
No,
that.
I'm saying we
I
both
don't
grant
think
that he knew Edo Itachi was showing up, right?
here, I'd have to look.
He knew Sasuke and Itachi was showing up, right? Bro, can we like eccentric? Can you vouch for it? Like, or Kensai, or Jin, or Future, or anybody? All right, fuck y'all.
Bro, playing. What can you vouch for, bro?
Yeah, can you vouch that Edo Kabuto knew Itachi and Sasuke, or Itachi or Sasuke were showing up to the cave?
Yeah, I can get the
Okay,
chapter. Hold up.
thank you.
Okay, there we go. Here, he just says that he didn't pre-place anything, or my bad. He didn't pre. God damn it! He didn't pre-place traps ahead of time.
Yeah,
It's
he
just the
didn't
fact
replace
that
traps.
wait. It's just the fact that nature is his ally.
Yeah, I don't think you understand. So it's true that he doesn't have to pre-place traps. What he can consider a trap could be like a booby trap. Like, for example, this is just an example. I'm not saying he would do this. Like some type of cover over fucking spikes and they walk on the spikes and they fall. I grant that. But I'm saying embedding the entire cave with his chakra to make nature his ally is something in which he doesn't have to consider a trap. But that's irrelevant. Can you answer the question that I just asked, which was, do you
Wait,
agree
which one?
that he knew that they were coming?
I'd have to see the scan first.
Oh my god. Okay. Ghetto Jane, can you send the chapter, please?
Wait, did somebody vouch? If somebody vouched, then I don't really care.
Ghetto Jin vouched, yes.
I'm getting the chapter 2 for y'all. Let me see.
All
If
right.
Jin vouch, I don't. If Jin vouch, you don't need to
Okay.
scan. Sure,
Okay, then
he
yeah,
knew
he
that they
knew
were.
that they were coming. So yeah.
Yeah,
I just
he
believe
knew that they were
obviously
coming before.
hold on. This is just hold on. This is just rationally true. So it's just the case that he is using his chakra to control the terrain, or else he wouldn't be able to control the terrain, logically speaking. Therefore, if he's using his chakra, he has to extend his chakra to control the terrain. It's either the case that his chakra is extensive fast, in which it would make sense for him to extend it to sense the location of the entities, or he already imbued the entire cave with his chakra, which would also make sense. Either way entails my point. So the point of contention, whether or not on your side, by the way, the point of contention currently that you have to justify is whether or not it is not the case that his sense or his control of the terrain grants him sensory power.
Okay, I don't think that you've demonstrated that it does grant him sensory
I don't
power,
need to. That's the point
but
that you're making due to the reaction shit.
I'm not making it.
I'm saying you're presupposing that the terrain, which it makes sense if the terrain does, due to his full control over nature and everything like that, you're presupposing that he doesn't have sensory of the location of them at all times, specifically within the cave. Whenever you say that he's reacting via pure speed, for example,
Wait, are you saying that I don't, or
you don't. What?
that I'm not presupposing it?
I'm saying to make the claim that there's reaction instances, or there's reaction instances, or my bad. To say that there's circumstances in which he reacts to Itachi via pure speed is to presuppose that there aren't specific things in which
Well, no, I'm not
instantiate
saying
those
that.
circumstances.
I'm not saying that he's reacting to it with like raw speed, no sensory. I'm saying that he's just using the
Wait, no,
normal
no, no,
stage
no, no,
mode.
no. I'm saying no, no, no. I'm saying independent of the sensory as well. So it can be his nature sensory, specifically the sage mode sensory, in addition to his raw speed. To say that he's reacting to Itachi or Sasuke purely because of those two is to presuppose that there aren't external circumstances in which instantiate those. So, in my opinion, like I
Yeah,
said, I think it makes sense for him to have control of the terrain in a way in which obviously allows him to sense what's going on within his terrain, which includes the location of objects, specifically with a large amount of chakra as well for this terrain. Therefore, that's why I'm asking the question of whether or not you believe he is able to sense the location of objects in which are in the terrain in which he controls completely. You're saying no. I'm asking for the argument as to why not.
yeah. I don't think that he would need to sense based off of like I don't know how to word it. The normal or
No,
not
I can grant this. I grant this. If
abnormal like what
Wait,
happened?
hold on. If he has a stronger, hold on. If he has a stronger sensory ability than that just helps my point. The entire point is, if it's the case that he can sense the location of Itachi at all times, then circumstance, like this is just an example, by the way. This isn't the only circumstance in which would instantiate reactive ability. But if he's able to sense Itachi at all times, then it wouldn't just be via pure speed or via pure prediction or predictable ability in a limited way, in which grants him reactive ability. So you cannot use it as connective scaling. Now, if you're saying that there's something which extends past the location ability that I'm talking about, then that just helps me even more because there's something external to his speed and his base sensory that allows him to react to Sasuke or Itachi or whatever.
No, I'm saying that he's just using his normal save mode sensor. God
Yeah,
damn it.
I asked why that would extend to the range that Itachi is.
Why would it
Yeah, so I
extend
agree
to
that
like
could be a strong sensory, but I don't see why the range would be as strong as what I said as an alternative.
okay, can you show the example then of why that wouldn't be normal save mode sensor? Why
What
like
would it be
why
his
like
most sensory?
why it wouldn't be normal save mode sensor in the sense that like um him manipulating the terrain would amp his
But
ability.
I don't think you understand. So look, I can grant that this is normal Sage Mode sensory in the sense where this sensory is derived specifically off of Sage Mode. So you can only have this sensory if and only if you have Sage Mode. That's fine.
No,
But the entire
that's
point
not
is
what
whether or
I
not
mean.
the entire point is whether or not these two sensory points are separate or whether or not they're identical currently. I believe it will make sense for them to be separate because this is purely derived off of the manipulation of the terrain rather than just sensing natural energy. If natural energy is stronger as a sensory point when it comes to at least precision, in things that are within range, that's completely fine. But whether or not it has the extensive range as the same or in comparison to the control sensory point, then I just disagree with that.
Okay, I think that it just being the normal save mode sensory that every character in the verse save mode gets is fine. Like
But I
like
don't think you
Naruto
understand.
with
The entire point is that
expansion.
we've never seen a
Literally-
character who controls this terrain with Sage mode like Kabuto. So you can't use that.
Yeah, but
You
he
can't
okay,
compare
but that doesn't need to be the case.
what doesn't need to be the case.
That we need to see a character who can control the terrain. Controlling the terrain
Oh
is just like
no, no.
another.
The entire point is that that's not true. But the entire point is that due to the fact that he's able to control the terrain, which has never been shown before, you cannot use other circumstances to determine whether or not other people have additional sensory capacities or abilities. Because we obviously can assume that a byproduct of controlling the terrain, for example, can be the sensory of things in which are in the terrain at all times. The same as, for
Wait,
example, within
why?
JJK. Why what?
Why would we assume that?
That's just an example. I'm not saying we have to assume that. But we see other, like for example, JJK, when they
So what's
have
your
complete
reason?
control, can I finish? When they have complete control over a domain expansion, for example, they're able to sense the location of objects within the domain expansion at all times, independent of the CE.
Okay, wait. Then if that's not your reasoning, then I'm confused. What is your reasoning?
I'm asking why this wouldn't be inferred from the control of the terrain if I have other comparisons such as JJK, a domain expansion, to base my belief off of, or my
Well,
question off of.
I don't really care about JJK. That's
Wait, you don't
entirely
have
different.
to. That's why I
I
said
don't know
base
why.
my belief off of. I don't see the argument as to why this isn't derived from the terrain advantage that he has.
Yeah, I don't know why it would be. I don't know why you're
Wait,
asking
that's
why
why
it
you don't
wouldn't
have
be.
to know why it
Wait,
would be.
wait,
That
wait.
just defeats your point because you're the one making the presupposition.
I don't know why you're shifting a burden and asking me why it
There
wouldn't
is
be
no
when
burden on me currently because I never made
why
the
it
claim
would
that
be.
it would be. You're the one presupposing the
Okay,
fact
wait.
that it
If you're
wouldn't
not
be.
claiming that it would be, we can just move on. Like
Okay, I don't think
Kabuto
you
just
understood the
regular
point. Yeah, get it. We can
Kabuto's regular
conclude.
cases.
Let's conclude.
Okay, sure.
Okay, by the way, when it comes to contending judgment, can you like do it after the debate? Because I want to finish the
I'm
debate
not
before we go
contending
on.
judgment. I don't give a fuck.
Okay, Ghetto Jin. You want our conclusions?
Nah, I have to point just fine. I mean,
Okay.
you were on the affirmative. Whatchamacallit, Reggie? You were on the affirmative. Uh, all Fendi is saying he has high priors to believe so, and if you have no priors, it will be very weird to make your claim, and it will be kind of be a backtrack. So does get the point.
Okay. So that just justifies that there's going to be a circumstance in which grants the advantage of reaction every single time that they're reacting to each other, blah, blah, blah. So you cannot scale Edo, Kabuto to Sasuke, or I apologize, to Itachi via pure speed and then Sage Mode sensory points, specifically the one that you're talking about alone. But rather, there's going to be circumstances in which instantiates a higher reaction capacity. Then that just justifies on my end Edo Itachi's relativity to an amped Sage Mode Kabuto, in which would not be applied to the hypothetical verse because the hypothetical verse is going to include a void in which doesn't grant him terrain manipulation, as we've agreed with the topic. So the chain skills is going to be the following: Edo Itachi relative or above Edo or Sage Mode Kabuto, who has an advantage, and then Sage Mode Kabuto, who has an advantage, is going to be a level above the Sage Mode. I apologize. Yeah, the Sage Mode Kabuto that you're using in the hypothetical verse.
Okay, are you saying that he like wouldn't be able to fuck, how do I word it? Manipulate the terrain
Uh,
that
the
gives him.
entire
Are you
topic is
saying he
no
wouldn't be able to?
terrain.
No. I'm
Yeah,
saying, are you
mhm.
saying that he wouldn't be able to manipulate the terrain to give him like the same sensory? Not in like
No,
the
he
cave
wouldn't
or whatever.
because a cave is enclosed. I said we're doing it on an empty plane, and you granted that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Uh,
Like I'm saying,
uh,
he could just do it on an
okay.
empty plane.
Yeah. Why do you think he would do that? If what I said before, I don't think you were listening, was the reason that. Oh yeah, I said he was prepared. Blah blah blah. I believe that he extended his chakra to engulf the entire cave. So, if it is the case that he has, or I apologize, so it can be easier for him to manipulate the cave when they come. And then obviously that's going to, if it's a byproduct, that being the sensory location, then that's going to be, or that's going to come in respect to him already having the cave engulfed with his chakra or his natural energy, whatever he's using to do that. In this scenario, there's no prep time to engulf the entire void. Additionally, it's easier to involve a spherical thing or spear or an enclosed thing rather than a plane. And then thirdly, if it's or fourthly, if it's the case that he is not having it already pre-engulfed, but rather he's engulfing it as they go on, well, I don't see why he would want to do that since he can already see Itachi in an enclosed or in an open plane rather than by the way, he has natural CE or sensory, blah, blah, blah. He has natural chakra sensory. I don't see why he would engulf the plane if he could already see Itachi, or two, if Itachi's behind him or something like that, he already has his base sage mode sensory. So that just be, it would be an irrelevant ability.
Yeah, I don't know how you would ever be able to demonstrate that Sage Mode Kabuto can or did do this.
Did do what?
Like pre-place his chakra and
Yeah, we just
nature.
moved on from that point, brother. I don't think you understood. If it's the case that the last
No.
point goes through, hold on. The case that the last point goes through, which is that there exists possibly an alternative for his sensory data or his sensory capacity when it comes to a sage mode, then it's the following. Either he uses his engulf or he uses the prep time to engulf the cave with his chakra so he can use this data or whatever, or even so he can manipulate it, or two, he does it as the battle with Itachi goes on. I'm saying if he uses the prep time, quote unquote, the prep time wouldn't be relevant here because there's no prep time within a hypothetical battle. If he doesn't use the prep time but rather he's doing it as the battle goes, it wouldn't be logical to do it as the battle goes because it's not an enclosed plane where Itachi, or it's not an enclosed domain where Itachi can hide or something like they did in the cave, but rather it's an open plane, meaning it's irrelevant to engulf this thing in which allows him to sense the location of Itachi possibly, but rather he can use his natural sensory that is already granted from the sage mode at base.
Yeah, why would it being an open plane matter? In the sense that, let's say like they're in a plane,
Let's
why would he
conclude.
not be able to manipulate his, or
That
my bad,
isn't the
why would
point.
he not be able to
Conclude.
send them to the same? What?
Let's conclude.
Okay, you made like 5 different points. I'd have to like hear the first part again.
Oh my God. Listen, please. Okay. So look, the entire point is that I'm not saying, look, it's an alternative or it's a dichotomy. It's either the case that he engulfed it with the prep time or he did it as the battle goes on. There's no prep time here, therefore he wouldn't be able to engulf the plane. Secondly, if it's the second part of the dichotomy, is just the case that it wouldn't be rational for him to use this because he already has something in which is sufficient or efficient enough, which you granted, by the way, is a stronger version of the one that I gave. He already has something which is efficient when it comes to sensory. And the only reason why the location sensory within the cave will be relevant is because, for example, we don't know the range. We can't determine the range of his natural energy sensory and shit, blah, blah, blah. But if he engulfs the entire cave, we'll be able to sense at all points when it comes to location wise where Itachi is. In this case, he could just see Itachi because there's nothing to hide behind. And also, he can build up to the manipulation of the terrain. Obviously, it's just going to be much slower because he doesn't have it already engulfed due to the lack of prep time. So, yeah, I'm not denying the fact that he can still
I just
control the
think,
empty domain. He can control the floor, whatever. But that doesn't grant him the advantages, the alternative advantages I was talking about in the first point, which is if he has the ability to sense the location at all time, he can make predictions based upon where Itachi is and where he's going.
yeah, he would just be able to manipulate it like as the battle goes on, which is fine, and then he like
Let's
it doesn't
conclude.
need to be like an entire. Okay, sure. I'm just gonna say this. It doesn't need to be like an entire closed-in area. It can just be like a reasonable distance away from Kabuto or Itachi, because I don't think even in the fight he was manipulating the entire cave at all times. Like,
Yeah, that just presupposes that he wasn't. I believe
okay,
that
yeah, that's
when it comes to hold on, when it comes to manipulation, I'm not saying that he was extending like the pose or anything at all times. But when I'm saying manipulation, I'm saying that he just has full control of the entire cave, where he can sense, like for example, everything which is moving in the cave, or he can choose to lift up one of the fucking spears in the cave or something like that. But that just goes back to the original point. So we can just conclude, like I said.
yeah, that's
I don't
fine.
think you really consider anything. Okay, Ghetto Jin, who won this point?
You again. Does go back to original point.
Okay, and then
Okay, what's the point
so
after
that
this?
just well, I mean, I already got Sage Mode Kabuto with an advantage below Itachi, and then obviously Sage Mode Kabuto that you're using is below the one with an advantage. So Edo Itachi would just be or faster than Sage Mode Kabuto. And yeah,
Okay, yeah, where does that get you?
do you have any other scaling? Well, that's just speed scale, so it's just proving that Itachi's faster than Kabuto. Do
Okay,
you have
that's
anything else
fine.
for your scaling?
Um, not for the. You agree they can damage each other, right?
Yeah, if yeah,
Okay, that's fine. Okay, where's
not
it
to the same extent, but
go
yeah,
from here? Where's it go from here? Wait, not to a what?
I don't grant that they can damage each other to the same extent.
Okay, I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So yeah,
where's it
my
go from
character's
here?
faster. My character just has higher sort of scaling. They're able to damage each other, but Itachi just has higher set of scaling when it comes to speed. So I will win.
No.
Why not? My character has higher sort of scaling when it comes to speed, and they can damage each other. So there's no external thing in which we mentioned which would disrupt the flow or change
Oh,
scale.
sure. If you wanna go on to like win cons or whatever, I can go on to that.
Okay, what
You
one
know
con
that?
without the terrain advantage does Kabuto have?
Okay, he has the Genjutsu.
What does that show that?
Can somebody send it? My hands are like dirty as fuck right now.
Yo, Jen, bro, come in clutch, bro.
Of course.
Yeah, that was what I said. I had a scan. I ain't trying to send it, bro. That way green as hell.
Hmm.
And you gonna send it, bro?
I'm like, what skin you want?
Sage Kabuto using Teiya's Genjutsu.
Oh yeah. I got you.
Shut up.
Do. Please. There we go.
Damn, Jin, I thought you were in fucking scan service. It does not take as long to find it.
I have it. I'm just Just find a good image for it, bro.
Yeah, you're trying not to get the low quality ghetto Jin scans.
Type shit, bro. No, the worst quality scan
40p.
ever is the Arrow one, bro. The Arrow video. Fucking
Which
Deborah
one, the
scan,
first
bro.
or the second?
Deborah scan. I don't know who he was sending it to, but that shit was like, shit was ass. Please download the image. All right, now I can go back to the fucking packing. All right, I sent the anime version in a. Wait, what?
I bet. Where?
Okay, I guess he doesn't care. Animate,
Wait, where?
bro. I
I'm
gotta
gonna
look
send
that
evidence,
shit
bro.
up.
I bet.
I'm gonna send evidence.
Look
I'm gonna
that
send the
shit up.
manga version, anime version, which is like consistent in both continuities. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
he totally didn't not have the scans.
Yeah, I had the scan, bro.
Jenna, you're retarded, bro.
Bro, shut up! I'm doing shit.
Like, bro, like these bleach takes are like some bones. Nigga, Reiji would piece up the fuck out of Ukiura. I cannot. Especially Kisuke. Oh my god, I don't want to know about that shit.
Anyways, Jen did send the scan in the chat. Yeah, boys.
Okay, he sent it. So
You okay, son?
yeah, if Itachi gets hit with that, he just gets incapacitated.
Are you okay? Genjutsu, so even your Susanoo cannot stop sound. Wait, you do realize, okay, where does he hit Itachi? Is that the indication mark in the middle?
Bro, I have no clue what fucking scan he sent.
Yes.
I'm
The
looking
middle
at
part
it
is
right
them
now.
both being trapped in a genjutsu. Yes. Let me clarify for both of you.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, so why do you even think they would be put into the situation where he would use this? Because obviously he used it off of the condition that Susanoo was applied. Obviously, Susanoo was applied because he was protecting Sasuke. There's a situation which led up into both of them being in this location. So obviously the battle's not going to go the same course in character. Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, what do you mean? I have no clue what you're talking about
Yeah,
right now.
there's conditions in which led up to him using this genjutsu and which wouldn't apply to the hypothetical verse seemingly because Sasuke does not exist there. So, for example, throughout a lot of the battle, Itachi is protecting Sasuke with Susanoo and multiple other attacks in which would obviously cause Itachi to not go full power or be nerfed against Kabuto.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a second. I gotta go inside and look at the scan.
Okay. And then also, from what I see, Itachi doesn't even get hit with it. It's a shadow clone that does.
Can somebody vouch for Itachi does get hit with it? I have no clue
I
what the fuck
I
this
sent the
is.
scan. I sent the scan. I think it's a shadow clone that got hit by it.
Oh my god. Yeah, Center. What do you think, Center? Oh, he's
Is that a
tripping.
shadow clone? Oh no!
Nah,
I'm tripping. I'm tripping.
you're tripping.
Okay.
You're tripping, bro. That's cool.
Yeah, no.
I was, I
Yo, let
thought
me just
Jim
delete
sent
that.
some
Let me
fan
just delete
fiction
that.
shit. Okay, now I can look at the scan.
hmm Yeah. So there's two things. One,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
obviously
I'm looking.
circumstances. Yeah, I'm just clarifying arguments. There's circumstances in which lead into the situation occurring, which seemingly wouldn't apply to the battle that they have. And then additionally, it's just the case that he's the one who came up with the plan to getting out of it with Sasuke, meaning that he could just create a shadow clone to do the same thing because the shadow clone shares his eyes, obviously.
Okay, I don't think that. I'll address the first part. I don't think that them not being in the exact same situation would really mean anything. I just think that's
I'm
something in
not.
Kabuto's toolkit. I just think it's something in Kabuto's toolkit that they don't have a counter to.
Yeah,
from
when
the
you say they don't
beginning.
have a counter to, he literally gives a counter during the battle, which was the second point I made. He could just use a shadow clone to mimic Sasuke in that instance and then create the same counter, which he comes up with
Hey,
himself.
I'm
And then
hearing you. I'm
additionally,
hearing you.
hold on, let me finish. And then additionally, this is something Kabuto uses as a response to Susanoo because Susanoo apparently cannot bypass sound. So I'm saying, obviously, this led into this specific situation in which they're behind a wall. Kabuto believes it's the best thing in his arsenal at the time. This situation wouldn't be mimicked. So you saying he's in his kid doesn't mean that he's going to use it the same or even use it at all during the battle with Itachi in time to beat Itachi before Itachi beats him.
Okay, I don't think that what's his name. I don't think the fight has to go exactly as it did in the manga. I don't think that it would go exactly as it did in the manga because like they're in completely different circumstances. I'm just saying that if Itachi, or my bad, if Kabuto were to use this genjutsu, Itachi would not have a counter for it.
Yeah, I just gave the
Author,
counter.
wait,
Additionally,
wait, wait,
wait, hold on,
go.
hold on. Additionally, I don't
Wait,
believe,
Reggie.
hold on. Let me just clarify. Additionally, the thing in which caused this or the thing in which actualized the condition for the consequence to now be affirmed is the Susanoo's usage. However, the version of Susanoo that he used, I don't believe that he needs to beat Kabuto with, meaning that independent of Susanoo, which is the condition for the consequent, meaning the antecedent for the consequent in the situation, I believe that he can use his other Susanoo, which would cause the end to the battle.
I don't think that. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I don't think that the shadow clone being a win condition would even be present in the battle because he already has to have the shadow clone active in
Yeah,
order
what
for
was
him to
wrong with
not
that?
be caught by genjutsu. What happened?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? We see consistently that people like Naruto, Itachi, all these people apply shadow clones or something along the lines of that when faced against enemies and who has tactics. So we obviously know Itachi is obviously not retarded. He's smart. Even in situations where we don't see the shadow clones on screen, sometimes they do some substitution jitsu or whatever it's called, or they have a shadow clone in the background for whatever tactic they're trying to apply. Additionally, we know that Itachi is fucking smart and he probably and most likely knows Kabuto's uses of genjutsu, which he states before this instance, by the way, he states that he has genjutsu, or again, whatever it's called, before him actually using it.
Okay, I don't think that. What's his name? Wait, repeat that last part? Oh, wait, yeah, my bad, my bad. Oh, sorry. What's his name? I don't think that Itachi even uses shadow clones like that consistently in battle.
He
Like
literally
somebody like
does.
Naruto. I don't think that. I don't like. I think Naruto is like the only case where somebody consistently uses shadow clones in battle to the point where it would be a good way to break you out of
Okay,
a
wait, hold on.
genjutsu.
The reason, hold on. So the battles you're talking about are most likely battles in which the other person doesn't have a stronger genjutsu or doesn't have a genjutsu at all. You can now compare those scenarios and then apply it to this to try to disrupt the likelihood. So it's just the case that Itachi isn't retarded. He's obviously smart. If he knows he's going against someone, which he does, by the way, if he knows he's going against someone with genjutsu, and he's the one who came up with the tactics to deal with the genjutsu in the first place, then he can have a shadow clone on steed or on standby.
Yeah, I don't think that. Okay, wait. Are we agreeing that they both have like prior knowledge on each other?
Do you not agree with that?
I'm just. I mean, I'm just
Independent of whether or
asking.
not,
They both.
independent of whether
They
or not
both.
he has, oh, independent of whether or not he has prior knowledge, meaning we don't even have to grant that. It's just we know that he's smart, so he can make
Okay.
observations, and Kabuto literally comments on how he has genjutsu before he used it. So, off of the observations he can make, he can infer that a shadow clone would be a situation, or a shadow clone being implemented within a battle would be one of the best possible scenarios in which he can apply. He can then actualize that best possible world to the actual world, and then have a shadow clone on standby, the same as the substitution genjutsu or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think the substitution jutsu is the same thing. What's it called? Because you would have to actively move out of the way it's explained when something is when you're hit with something.
The entire point is that there's something. Look, the entire point is that there's something there that you can use to substitute yourself with, so they can take the damage. However, on an empty plane, the only thing that would be there to substitute is a shadow clone. Meaning that for substitution jutsu, which is something that they use commonly within battles, he can put a shadow clone there to substitute himself. Now, this will actually help my point because we see, although I can grant your point about people not just casually using shadow clones as much as someone like Naruto, we see people casually use substitution jutsu, and substitution jutsu for it to work has to have something or has to have something within reality to substitute with. Obviously, they usually use tree branches or something like that. So in this instance, in the plain field or plain void, it would have to be his shadow clone or his kunai or something like that, which it's most likely a shadow clone.
Yeah, I disagree that he would just like have a shadow clone out in order to use substitution jutsu
Yeah,
because
why? That's the only
characters
way they can use it.
because I don't think that characters use substitution jutsu at a high level like that.
Yo, why
Because the
not?
way it's explained, you would just be like thing here. I can just show examples. Like,
Wait,
I
hold
think
on, wait,
throughout
hold on. When you
all,
say that people they
not
don't use
all
it
of
at a
them,
high level, hold
like
on before you finish. I'm asking. When you say they don't use it at a high level, what do you mean? Like you're saying the high tiers don't use it?
I'm saying like probably past the pain arc, they almost never use substitution jutsu in the verse.
Uh, oh my god. Well, that's not true. And then secondly, it just may not be a situation in which it's required to be used, so that would be irrelevant.
Wait,
If he
every
deems it to be
situation,
No, I said
every
it may not be a
situation.
situation in which, hold on. One, it may not be a situation in which it's required to have usage there. Secondly, it may not be a situation in which it's relevant narratively, so they don't show it. And then thirdly, if Itachi deems it to be a relevant ability, then he will use it because we know Itachi's not retarded, he's smart. But if Itachi in his mind has substitutions, which obviously I'm going to grant Itachi's knowledge over yours, he's more smart than you, he's more intelligent, he has higher BIQ than you. If he deems there to be a different ability which exists in his arsenal that can get past the situation, he doesn't need to use substitution jutsu, which is why but in this situation, he doesn't use substitution jutsu because he has something which can counter it more efficiently, that being Sasuke Sharingan. In this instance, like I said, he can either one, use the shadow clone on standby because he's smart, but nigga, he's not retarded. He can come up with tactics, make observations about this dude having genjutsu. Or two, he can use, and I apologize, he can use the shadow clone on standby for a substitution thing. So we obviously can infer and make observations about this dude being connected to Orochimaru, who knows a lot about Itachi, knows about a lot about genjutsu. She can make observations such as that.
Okay, I'm gonna address the second part later because that's a whole different thing. But why would Itachi deem it to be a needed to use a substitution jutsu when he nor nobody else, like almost nobody else in the verse, deems it to be necessary, like past the war arc?
Yeah, that's the
I don't
point
know
of
why
contention. Whether or
Itachi would
not they deem, when you
arbitrarily.
say deem it to be necessary, it's just the case that either they have alternatives, and if the alternative existed in this instant, that just helps my point because Itachi doesn't need to use substitution jitsu with something else, and which would be more effective or efficient when it comes to dealing with the situation or problem, or it's just the case that he in this arsenal has this one thing in which would effectively deal with the situation at hand. Therefore, his alternatives would it be something that's needed, and he would just use substitution jutsu. So you using situations in which people don't use substitution jutsu as a likelihood inducing point as to why you wouldn't use substitution jutsu here, it does not actually follow. Because from what I've seen, at least the people who don't use have or who doesn't or who doesn't use substitution jutsu has alternatives.
Yeah, he could have an alternative, which is why he doesn't use the substitution jutsu. And
Yeah,
I
let's conclude.
don't think that him. Wait, no. I don't think that him using the substitution jutsu on a shadow clone would be very effective because that's you
Yeah, why
using
not?
half of your chakra. Yeah, that's you using half of your
Yeah,
chakra off
yeah.
of.
Why does that matter if they
Wait,
have infinite
wait, wait,
chakras?
wait,
Edo,
wait.
dumbass. What the hell?
Edos don't have infinite chakra.
Uh, do they not have infinite chakra? Fucking Jin,
No.
pretty sure they do. I was asking Jin, not you. Jin,
Uh,
don't they have infinite chakra?
I
Um,
think they do. They have limitless regeneration. So like they
yeah,
like
it's
Okay,
like
when
it's
they
like
run out of
okay,
chakra.
limitless regeneration. Sure, they don't have infinite chakra. My bad. They're just able to infinitely regenerate their chakra. Okay, sure. So he just has that. So I
Like
don't
wait, hold
think
on. Let
shadow
me
clones would be
clarify real
relevant.
quick.
oh
Let me
no, no,
clarify
that's
real
not.
quick.
That's not.
Let me
Yo,
clarify because like they'll run like let's say for example they have to exhaust. As far as I know, they have to exhaust all their chakra, and then after like they exhaust all of it, they get it back.
okay, no, that's
So you gotta
completely fine.
actually
So
like
they have an infinite regeneration when it comes to chakra. That's completely fine. I can grant that. So I don't
Well,
see
no,
why
that's
half
not.
this
That's
chakra
not.
shit would be, bro.
No,
What
no,
now,
no.
bro?
I'm saying that's not true.
Oh my god, can y'all
Like,
understand,
like
bro?
characters. Here, I can show you like Tobirama in the war arc running out of chakra as an Edo. I can show you like
Yeah, I
Hashirama.
can grant that they ran out of chakra under what Sensor said. Under what Sensor said. Wait, let me just finish. Wait,
Yeah,
am I cutting out? Am I lagging? Hello.
yeah, you cut out. Yeah, you cut
Okay,
out.
let me just finish what I was saying real quick. You can show whatever you really want to show after. But look, if it's the case that they have regenerative abilities in which are infinite relative to chakra, then he can use half of his chakra for the chakra clone because he's just going to regenerate it back if he were to run out of chakra himself. And then when you say that, for example, Tobirama ran out of chakra, whatever his name is, I can grant that. But the entire point is whether or not it's infinite regenerative under Center's view. So he can run out of it. I can grant that. But if he regenerates it, it's irrelevant. So, for example, there can be a split second in which he has no chakra or he has very, very small chakra. But 2 seconds later, he can have all his chakra back.
No, that's not. That's not. I don't think that's what Sender was talking about. I think that he means like
Let's
because
just
they have
ask
infinite body. Okay, sure.
Censor God.
um. Wait, what was Reggie gonna say? Real quick.
You're going up, bro.
Okay, I think what you're saying is because they have infinite bodies, because they have this infinite like capability to regenerate chakra,
What?
like Naruto characters don't usually have. They would just be able to regenerate their chakra infinitely,
Bro, what
because
are you
they
talking
like
about? Yo,
literally
Censor,
can't
can you
die.
clarify? No, that's just not likely.
I'm
But
trying.
yeah,
I'm
Censor.
trying to. What do you mean because they have infinite bodies?
What?
I'm asking, what does he mean by they have infinite bodies?
He doesn't even
Like they can't. No, like they
I
can't
think he
die
means
unless
like
they get
they can't
healed.
die, like their body like will grow back and shit. I think that's what he means.
Oh wait, Jen, can you just vouch? Because you
Like their
probably know
bodies
Naruto more
don't
than me.
No, no,
decay.
okay, that wouldn't hold on. That wouldn't be that wouldn't be efficient or that wouldn't work when it comes to interpretation because it's most likely they most likely wouldn't make that statement if it's just talking about their immorality or whatever because every character if they don't die would just have infinite regeneration when it comes to chakra, but they don't comment on that. So it can't be the immorality because they already comment on the immorality and then the infinite regeneration is just something that we can obviously infer empirically and rationally when it comes to their immorality. If this person's immortal, then it's just the case. Or if this person can't die, then it's just the case. They can charge up their chakra forever because they can't die. That's just true.
Yeah, I'm not
Unless it's
gonna
an
lie, bro.
actual, unless it's
Here's
an
a
So yeah,
actual
scam,
that's
bro.
the
external,
way that.
hold on, unless it's just an actual independent feature of the immorality, it's irrelevant to mention
Infinity,
the
nah, bro. Look,
the
just looking. There's a scam, bro. Like I don't want to hear this, bro. Looking evidence.
okay. There isn't any worse outcome than that. Any immortal body, limitless chakra. Okay, yeah, thank you. So that just helps me. They wouldn't specifically
Yeah,
comment on this unless it was an independent feature of the immorality.
yeah, that just can't be true because of the
Yeah, why
fact that
not?
Madara, what's his name, Hashirama drains all of Edo Madara's chakra out,
Show
and
that.
the fact that and the fact that people like Tobirama do run out of chakra, like they don't have chakra.
Okay, show
And
that,
so
and then like I said, that doesn't really contain what I said. So there's
okay,
two things. One, show that for the limitless point overall, and then if that is the case, that that's something which exists, that goes back to the original point in which I was arguing under Center's viewer vouch, which would just be it's something in which happens infinitely in terms of it's a regenerative thing rather than it's just an infinite boundless chakra thing.
wait,
Or
okay,
or
so
or 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 the author just retconned it because he's an inconsistent writer, which we see happen in Naruto all the time. And obviously, we're going to go off of what he intends to be the case rather than what is actually the case when it comes to contradictions.
yeah, I think there's far more instances of what's it called, characters running completely out of chakra post this statement versus after, or my bad, before, because
What?
this is the only statement. Because this is the only statement that
Yeah,
Edos have
wait, yeah,
infinite
yeah.
chakra.
But the entire point is, yeah, the entire point is when we go off of intention, I believe it's way better and way more efficient to go off of statements, which is obviously going to be made in respect to the character, but they're still off the statements because they're just the author's one making the fucking statements. But I feel like when we're going to sexuality, we should go off of statements because that gives a clear depiction of what the author wants rather than there being situations that contradict overall narrative concepts, such as the Edo people cannot run out of chakra because when he's drawing these things or writing these things, he may not, or I apologize, when he's drawing these things, he might not be as visual, he might not be thinking as much as when he's actually writing these things to depict the concepts. But can you send evidence?
Yeah, sure, I'm getting it. If somebody has the Tobirama running out of chakra thing and the other
Okay,
stuff
like,
I
what does
talked
he
about,
say? Like does he just say I ran out of
he
chakra?
says that he has no chakra.
Okay. Mm-mm-mm.
You're acting on people, bro. Only nigga that really does Naruto here is Jen.
Here, that's kind of an example, but that's not what I'm talking about.
What? He sent it?
Like him only
Can you
being
guys
able
Okay,
to
I
account?
produce
see that's him.
power because of the fact that he's low on chakra.
Wait, no, why do you believe that? Don't you think he's just rusty when it comes to Shadow Clone Jujutsu? That I don't think that makes any sense. I ain't gonna lie. If someone like hold on, if someone like Naruto's able to produce like fucking billions or whatever the fuck he's able to do, even at his kid age, I believe that's whatever his name is, who is the creator of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, probably would be able to at least produce like, for example, 5, but he may just be rusty when it comes to control of his chakra.
Why would he be rusty?
The reason why he'd be rusty is because it's been fucking years, nigga.
It
Mentally
hasn't
speaking,
been
yeah.
years. Like realistically, there's been no period of time that took place.
Whatever, how many time it's been? Yes, yes, it has, because he
Yes,
just
there's been
woke up.
zero time between his last fight.
Uh, yes, there
Like actually
has. The
zero
time
time.
that's yes, there
No, there
has. The
hasn't.
time that he cannot finish. The time that he woke. Wait, are you saying his last fight in respect to when he was alive, or his last fight in respect to his Edo status?
Okay, his last fight in respect to both.
Okay, when it comes to his Edo fight, he just didn't have to use Shadow Clone in the fight prior. You can show that if he did. And then in the time in which he was alive, there is zero time because he wakes up
Wait,
and
is he
then he
saying
goes
he's
to the Edo
rusty
thing.
with only Edo Tensei? Therefore
What?
he's weakened? Are you
What? No,
saying
no,
that
no,
he's
no, 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 no. I'm
rusty with
saying that. I'm
wind
saying
and
mentally speaking, he's rusty. His mental capacity is going to correlate to his control over chakra. Obviously, Shadow Clone Jitsu is going to have something to do with control over chakra. So, one, his body can be rusty when it comes to concisely controlling chakra, which obviously these ninjas do and harness since a young age, independent of his mind. Meaning that there is going to be time because his body is the thing in which they heal. It's going to be an Edo version. And then, secondly, the thing in which you would say has zero time due to capacity of death would be his mind, in which that wouldn't work because he does have zero time. And secondly, it just with the zero, I mean, he does have more than zero time, which is the fact of him awakening and then going to the battle. So there's two things.
okay,
We know
there
that
has been a study.
we know that ninjas over time build bodies in which are accustomed to chakra concisement and control. Obviously,
Do you think that he lost his chakra control over the course of like the 5 minutes that it took him to get to battle?
I don't even believe that it was zero time between. I don't believe it was zero time at all. There's an
Okay, he
afterlife
was
of
already
Naruto.
he was already Edo Tensei and he fought Hiruzen.
And
And
what?
he died in battle. He was Edo Tensei and he fought Hiruzen and he died in battle.
Are you talking about the rules and shit? Yeah, show
So,
he didn't use the shadow clone. Show him using the shadow clone.
well, that's why I just asked.
Because if he's
Are you
control,
talking about
hold on.
following the
If he's
clone?
control,
That's why I
hold
just
on.
asked.
'Cause I thought you were talking. Yeah, I thought you were talking about when he first awakened in that instance, not the Ruzen thing. When it comes to the Ruzen thing, if he's being controlled, then obviously they're going to control what type of jitsus that he used, which are going to, for example, be more loose than Shadow Clone Jitsu, which requires a more concise control of seed or chakra.
Did you cut out?
No, I didn't. I just stopped talking because that was the point.
Oh, yeah. Can you demonstrate that ninja like get rusty with certain jutsu and they can't
Well, no,
use
I'm
them
sorry. Wait, give
anymore?
me a second. Give me a second.
Effectively?
I
All
didn't
right, go
say,
for it.
Mama. One, I didn't even give judgment. Stop dick riding. Anyways, what are you saying? I apologize.
All right. Can you demonstrate that ninja get rusty with certain ninjutsu and become less effective with
It's
them?
not the fact that they're rusty with ninjutsu specifically. It's the fact that they're rusty when it comes to chakra control. And this is just something that's intuitive, empirical. Over time, people will get rusty most likely, or have observations of people getting rusty when there's a time to, or there's a certain amount of time that passes of them not using something.
And I'm
High level,
saying,
specifically
okay,
like chakra
I
controller,
already,
for example.
yeah, I already went over why he would already be constantly manipulating his chakra at a high level when he was last Edoed
Yeah,
and when
but
he
when
died
it comes to manipulating
on
his
the basis
chakra
of
at a
his
high
dying
level, that's
ability.
different from manipulating his chakra to produce shadow clones. Obviously, for example, if he
Okay,
uses
so
a
you are
large,
saying that.
hold on, let me finish, Obviously, if he uses a large attack, like for example, like a Kamehameha wave or some shit like that, that's although there is some type of manipulation that's going to be at a high level, it's not as concise because it's a burst. It's not as concise as shadow clone jitsu, which states need high level concentration in jitsu or in chakra manipulation and control.
Okay, we see Tobirama use multiple Kage level jutsu in his fight with Hiruzen, so we
But
know
the
that he's
entire point
like
is that we don't
constantly.
see him use shadow clones. So although he has this vast arsenal, this versatile arsenal, since from what I've seen, he has never used shadow clone on panel before prior to this, then he wouldn't need to be net when it comes to using this due to his rustiness. One, when using the shadow clone, which is going to be correlated to how much chakra he needs to concise and control, because there's going to be obviously like a method and a threshold when it comes to controlling chakra, and then just manipulation of chakra overall. So it doesn't really do
I
anything.
don't think I don't think you get rusty with certain ninjutsu. Can you demonstrate that?
Yeah, let's conclude.
Okay, sure.
Uh, get us
Wait,
in who
actually no. We're not.
bro.
Whoa.
What the fuck?
I forgot that.
Okay.
Wait. Let me say this last
Okay,
thing.
I'm still. Uh, okay.
That
Okay.
like characters, that Edo characters just don't infinitely have chakra.
Let's look at the second one. I might be able to sense Naruto, but it's useless for teleport tonight. My truck has been drained by that last flying rising in these vines. Yeah, let's conclude. It just
Okay.
doesn't respond to what I said.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So yeah, Getojin, in conclusion, he just didn't respond to the alternative interpretation about Underwood Center's view being true. That being that it's just infinite regeneration, meaning obviously the flying Reiji Minato instance can just be that he drained out of chakra within that instance, but he didn't regenerate it yet. That just applies to both in all scenarios they can show. And then he didn't respond to how I'm not saying ninjutsu. The ninjutsu specifically is the thing in which got nerfed or he's rusty with. I'm saying that what causes the ninjutsu, which is going to be this chakra control, is what he's rusty at.
Is
Because
Jin here?
he just didn't respond to how the bodies are trained
Wait.
to.
I'm
Is
here.
Jin
I'm here.
here?
Yeah, he just didn't respond to how the bodies and I hope you would grant this, Kettle the bodies within Naruto, like the bodies of the ninjas, are trained to hold some type of chakra. They're trained to control and hold concise amounts of chakra. Therefore, if his body was dead, obviously, if his body was lifeless, it had no chakra because that's connected to spiritual life, blah blah blah. Then it would have no chakra flowing through it, meaning that the body would not be used to and would be rusty when it comes to controlling chakra, the same as his mental capacity, specifically when it comes to controlling the chakra, which there's a different threshold for shadow clone jitsu specifically. So, what do you believe on?
I'm not gonna lie, Reiji. What did you say? Because I didn't like. I kind of zoned out for that. To that one part.
Wait, what did I say to what?
For the did you respond to that, or did you think you responded to that?
To
The
what?
only
What
specific talk
specifically?
about the shadow clones. The shadow clone. I heard everything
Oh,
else.
the shadow clone? Tobirama
Yeah.
shadow clones?
Yeah. Like, what was your counter to Fendi's interpretation?
Senju's? I have
Infinity's
no clue. Hold on, wait.
interpretation.
I gotta walk inside. Give me a second.
This, this is only. I
Okay,
think
what'd
there's
you
no
say?
response. What was your response to his interpretation that the guy's just rusty when it comes to doing shadow clone?
Yeah,
And
I asked him to
even
demonstrate. Wait, I asked him to demonstrate that or that ninja get rusty with certain ninjutsu and not others, and I showed that he was using Kage level ninjutsu throughout the entire fight against Hiruzen. He died in battle, so he shouldn't have been rusty in that on that front. So there's no reason that he should be rusty with only the shadow clone jutsu, whereas with every other ninjutsu he's fine.
Okay.
yeah, do you want me to tell you my response to that, or you already know?
You mean you can?
Okay. Okay. One, I said that there's a different threshold. He just did not. I don't know, like if he didn't hear
A
it or he just
different
didn't try.
threshold, yeah,
I said
different.
there's a different threshold when it comes to the manipulation of chakra control relative to shadow clone jitsu. Secondly, he uses those Kage level attacks all the time, or shadow clone jitsu is something that he doesn't use all the time. So the threshold will be rusty. And then thirdly, this is all irrelevant. The entire point in this instance is whether or not he says two shadow clones in respect to the fact that he doesn't have enough chakra at the time to use those. However, if I go under my other interpretation, which was granted under Center's view, I literally said this 10 times, it would just be the case that he can have his chakra drain instance to instance, but it's an infinite regeneration factor. So you go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, even if we do grant the Sherlock clone point, I don't know if it does much. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, I'm giving a point to Fendi. I'm like, okay.
Okay. So look, you want to end it there? I just believe that he uses his good Susano, not the fucking ugly, shitty one, and then just seals that nigga, and it just spams Mataratsu's because he has infinite chakra apparently.
Wait, why would that break through the sound ninjutsu?
You want to conclude, but you just did not listen to the points at all.
No, I'm saying
I
why
just-
would that? Why would the larger Susanoo break through the?
I already countered the sound jiu-jitsu, bro. One, I don't even think he would use it. And secondly, the last point was whether or not it would be likely that he would already prepare a counter towards that, which you already lost
Wait,
to.
which point were we concluding?
The entire point, bro. Don't rat, bro. Do not rat. Your
Okay.
entire defeater was the
No,
infinite.
wait. There was no indication we were concluding the entire point.
I don't know what you're saying, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
There was no indication we were concluding the entire point.
Oh my god, bro. What other contention do you
You did
have,
not
bro?
bring up the sound genjutsu that entire time. What?
Your response to the point about the sound genjutsu was that, bro. Oh my god,
Yeah,
bro.
but in the conclusion, you didn't bring it up.
Yeah, because oh my god, I don't need to bring it up because this side point is the thing in which contends the sound jitsu point, meaning that if I lose this side point, I possibly would lose that main point. If you lose this side point, you would lose the
Your
main point overall.
your only contention with the sound genjutsu point is that my bad with the sound genjutsu is not that he like
You don't
can't
even know.
use it or didn't use it. What? Isn't that he can't use it, or
Bro,
that
can
he
we
wouldn't?
conclude? Or can we
That he
move on? I
possibly.
mean, like,
But
look, I clarified the only reason why I concluded specifically on the only reason why in my conclusion I only talked about the prior point we was just on is because this point is only relevant to the sound point. Meaning, if I win this point, I automatically win the sound point. If I lose that point, I possibly, depending on my responses, lose the sound point. Okay, so can we move on, bro?
okay, sure.
That's why I
We
didn't
could
talk
move on.
about the sound point. Okay, so yes, I just think that he spams infinite jitsu, blah blah blah, Mataratsu, blah blah blah, seal shit, absolute fucking defense, blah blah blah, whatever the fuck he has. Okay, are we done?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, GG.